Appearing on the Nancy Stevens Show, talking to anyone who's anyone in the arts and entertainment world. And today I'm joined by Rosemary Hill, best known as director and producer, and in my opinion, the bastion of all things art in Milton Keynes. Welcome, Rosemary.
Hello. That's lovely, thank you.
I tell you how lovely it is to see you, albeit on Zoom. It's been such a long time. I think this is the longest we've not seen one another to do any sort of broadcasting together, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
In the what, 7 years we've known each other, we've usually done 2 or 3 radio interviews a year, and now it's on this strange new world of Zoom. But you know, we'll make it work. It's, you know, we're just shouting for the arts still, aren't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
I actually feel really emotional seeing you, because it's just being in touch with another creator, someone else who's as passionate about the arts as I am, and is as frustrated by what's happening as I am. It's just, yeah, I wish I could sort of give you a virtual hug. You know, it's quite overwhelming.
Yeah, no, it's been a funny old year, but
it has. Oh, I need to get it together here. Come on, Stevens, pull yourself together. Right, let's be professional. So yes, so it's lovely. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Obviously, this is the first time we've chatted on my podcast. You've been on my radio show before, and obviously this is a lovely way that we can have a chat about what you've been up to, your incredible career, and the fact that you're such a champion for the arts, not only in Milton Keynes but for the arts world in general. So I just wanted to go into a little bit of detail about, I say, your extraordinary career and the amazing things you've done for the arts through broadcasting. So trained at Bangor University with Danny Boyle, no less.
Yeah,
at the Drama Studio London.
Snogged Danny Boyle as well.
Pardon?
I was in a play with Danny Boyle where I had to snog him.
Oh. Is he a good kisser?
He is. Very good.
Ooh, good to know. Well, you know, you've both gone on to do extraordinary things. Has it been interesting watching his upward trajectory of a career since Train Spotting, and was that a surprise?
No, because we all knew he was incredibly talented at university. He's just so humble as well, and giving, and always worked brilliantly with teams. You know, he was always so keen for the project to work, and he was always really helpful to other people and so on. So no, it's no surprise that he's done really well and that people really obviously love working with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extraordinary filmmaker. So you started your career as an English and drama teacher in Leicester before moving to train as an actor in the Drama Studio London, joined the BBC as producer and director, and spent 20 years working in radio, TV and multimedia, traveling the globe to make programs about such difficult subjects such as FGM. Tell us a little bit about this, because unfortunately this is something that is still prevalent in the news today, and we shouldn't even be having this discussion, should we?
Yeah, I mean, it is very prevalent. When I made a series, it was a series called It's a Girl, and it was commissioned by BBC World Service. And my idea was to look at girls in different parts of the world and how they were educated or not, as the case may be, because a lot of girls don't go to school, and how that affected their life chances. So it was commissioned, and I travelled to Kenya, to India, Kerala and Peru to be there when a little girl was born, and what the family's reaction was to that. And in Kerala it was one of great joy, because it's a matriarchal society, but not so much in other countries. And then a girl of 5 going to school if she was going to elementary school, and then a girl in her teenage years if she was going to secondary school or not, and very few were going to secondary school. But we also felt that we had to do something about female genital mutilation, because that affects girls' education, because a lot of girls drop out of school because of that. And we went to Kenya to do that, where FGM had been made illegal, but it was still happening. And I remember actually sitting in a village talking to a woman who was still doing it, and I was in her dark hut trying to fiddle with my radio controls because it was just me with my DAT recorder. And she said, and I had a translator because they speak Meru in that area of Kenya. And she said, "Oh, I'm not going to talk to you. You're still a child. Have you had this? Have you had this done?" And I said, "Oh, yes. I've had the operation," because I knew she wouldn't talk to me. I thought, well, she's not going to check, is she? So
no, not really. Well, you.
So I've actually got a picture of her. I know this is radio, but this is me with that said lady.
Wow. That's
and
amazing.
she made me drink this broth made of cassava afterwards, because she said I looked a bit pale and I needed building up. So she said she made me drink this, and I watched, and it had been made with boiled water, so I knew it was safe. But yeah, it was quite incredible that she sort of said that if the operation hadn't been done on somebody, or if somebody had been cut, they weren't a real woman and nobody would marry them. And I mean, and this is the thing, because it is done to control women's sexuality, girls' sexuality. And you know, it's horrendous because it's done with often a rusty razor blade. And I've just read a book by Hibbo Wadiri, who had it done to her when she was 6, and then came to the UK when she was a young woman, and actually she had the worst form of it, which is infibulation, where everything is sewn up.
Oh my God.
I mean, it is just absolutely appalling.
Thing is, in Western society, that's incomprehensible to us, isn't it?
Well, you'd be surprised, though, it happens in this country.
Well, I know, I suppose,
Northampton is known as a place where this happens, and it happens all over, because, you know, some doctors will do it. And, you know, there are FGM parties that go on where lots of girls, you know, have it done. I mean, it really is something that, you know, if you read Hibbo's book, it's called Cut. It shows how prevalent it still is. We reckon 200 million girls have had it done and are in danger. Wow. And about 160,000 are still in danger in just this country.
Wow, that's just heart-wrenching.
After
that you left the BBC to become freelance and return to your first love, which is theatre, and that's kind of how we met many years ago when you were doing plays, the thing, and I think I fell in love with your work when you put on Abigail's Party, and I know I always go on about it. And
did you see it on the BBC the other day, Play for Today?
Yes, yeah. And you know, obviously Michael Lee's been in the news a lot lately, but I always think of you because to me, I love I've read his interview, and he was never really happy with the television adaptation of it. It was always meant as a play, he said, and the way that you put it on as a play just blew my mind. I mean, I've never seen it as a play. It was so you captured, as a director, you captured all the nuance and the uncomfortable behavior that was so part of the way that life was there, the kind of keeping up with the Joneses sort of thing, and the costumes, and everything was just, excuse me, so the joys of doing Zoom at home. The way that you managed to put it on, I just remember sitting there just laughing my head off and just crying also with embarrassment, because it is one of those kind of plays that you just cringe. But that's when I just thought, this woman is an extraordinary director, and that's when I became such a fan of yours.
Well, thank you.
Well, it's true, and everything that you've done since, I've followed and seen your plays that you've done, and you're such an incredible vocal champion of the arts, both locally and nationally as well. How are things with the plays thing? Because I know you've been doing a blog throughout lockdown, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been doing a blog, and also in as soon as the Arts Council after lockdown announced emergency funding, we put in for an emergency funding. We were developing work from Taking the Stage, which was on at the gallery last year in September. And the idea was to champion women playwrights and new playwrights. Because I wanted to get to gender parity, to have, 50-50 that I put on male and female playwrights. And so we were just about to try and get funding to take one of the plays forward when the Arts Council said they weren't doing project grants anymore, but they were doing emergency funding. So we sort of changed things around a bit to still try and develop the play, ready for when we could tour it, and for the playwright to work with a dramaturg, which she has been doing. And the play was called Becoming the Invisible Woman. It was about a middle-aged woman who felt invisible in society, and it's funny and poignant. But then we wanted to explore the whole idea of invisibility in society, so we called the project Invisible Visible. And we were quite taken with the whole thing about key workers, because key workers had become very visible. And were in the news, obviously, because they were keeping the country running, and yet they were, called low-skilled and sort of denigrated in lots of ways.
Totally
but then,
demeaning.
They're not low-skilled. Working in a care home, you've got to have all sorts of emotional intelligence and to be able to connect and so on. And the NHS and all the other all the other workers, key workers. So we sort of thought this is a really interesting idea of who else feels invisible in society. So we put in a grant application and we were successful, and which we were thrilled about. So thank you very much to the Arts Council. I think have been amazing in this pandemic.
But to interject there, you have applied for funding on more than one occasion. You know how this works. You are the past master. If anybody's going to get arts funding, it's going to be you, because you've done it so many times. And I think the fact that your name carries so much gravitas and clout does help.
Well, it certainly helps if you've got a track record and you've delivered. So we decided that we were going to develop the play, but we were also going to do community projects as well alongside it. So we are working with an LGBTQ group in Oxfordshire to do an illustrated book, which we've got this amazing local illustrator called Jess Bolam, who's come out with the most incredible illustrations. She was working with the practitioner Jessie Collar in Cornerstone Arts, and my blog today, which is going to be sort of launched today, will show some of those incredible illustrations. I'm working with MK College and students, and I'm actually going there this afternoon to run a workshop, and we're doing films with them, and they're coming out with some incredible stories. And I think their films will be beautiful. There's 6 of them, and there's going to be, they've each done a monologue, 5-minute monologue. And then we're working with a craft sewing group of middle-aged people who are going to do a twine. Now, a twine is a multimedia sort of way of storytelling. And then tomorrow I am recording a podcast with various people from different parts of the community at MK Gallery. So the whole idea was to look at invisibility, but to tell stories in a different way, as we can't get into the theatre. And then with the play, we're also doing the same thing. We're doing a podcast, a film, which will be more like a teaser trailer, a twine, and an illustrated book. So we've got sort of 8 projects on the go. And we will be doing a sharing at MK Gallery. The date's not completely decided yet, but it will be the week of the 23rd of November.
We'll definitely put that out. So, and the thing is, podcasts are the way forward. I mean, I've been doing my podcast for a year now, and I just think it gives the ability to reach so many more people. And it's a wonderful thing. You have been, like me, so saddened by what we both deem is that the arts have been sidelined, marginalized, not given credence that they deserve. And you know, think about how much money the arts bring into this country, how good it is for our mental health. You know, the fact that Panto might be the only play a child ever sees, the impact and the ramifications of what we're going through for the arts is so vast. And I think unless you're in that, you know, in that world, you don't really know until it's gone, and now it's gone, and it's really hard. How are you coping emotionally? Because I know obviously you're a trained counsellor. How is this feeling for you? Because I know that I personally, as someone who is so invested in the theatre, I feel like someone's chopped off my arm, and I feel absolutely bereft. But for someone like you, this is your livelihood. How on earth have you coped psychologically?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, as soon as lockdown was announced on the 23rd of March, I lost all my income, really, overnight. I mean, I've got, you know, the Arts Council grant is sort of not megabucks, but it's enough to sort of, well, I mean, it's not enough to sort of keep me going. It's enough to keep me going mentally, because it's sort of, you know, and I've employed a lot of people, so it's sort of good for their mental health as well. And obviously they're all being paid equity rates and so on. And my counselling, I work for Mind and YiS, and I do that as a volunteer. So that, and I've been doing a lot of that. There's been a lot more of that, and I've been doing it by phone or Zoom. And you can imagine, you know, and I sort of put out quite early on that I was offering counselling, and the demand has been, you know, because it's having such an effect on people. And obviously young people on all age groups, but you can imagine the anxiety of young people who, you know, were out of school for months, anxiety, depression and so on. It's been very hard, and I you know, I find it difficult to understand why when an industry makes billions, why it's not been nurtured and saved. I mean, I know we've got the 1.57 million, which is a help.
It's nothing,
but,
really.
There are
it's
so many theatres that are closing down, so many small arts organisations. You know, and I talk to colleagues in Germany and France, and their governments are giving so much more. And we're known throughout the world for our expertise in the arts. That's why people come to this country. You know, you talk to all sorts of tourists. They don't come for the weather. They come for
certainly
the arts.
not.
They come for the arts and heritage. And we're decimating the arts.
I know. It just, God, I'm so emotional. I didn't realise how emotional I felt about it till I was talking to you, actually. You know, I've tried not to think about it, because, you know, I don't go to the theatre anymore. This is the longest in my whole life I've not been to the theatre. And I just think, like you say, you know, every other country in Europe is doing something to help the arts. And why? As you know, we are known as the, you know, artistic hub of the world. Why nothing has been done? And I just want to tear my hair out at the apathy and the lethargy that this government has employed regarding this whole thing. And I don't understand. You know, if we're looking at things from an economic perspective and how much money the arts does bring in, why are they not giving us the money that we need? I don't understand.
Because it would, you know, I mean, I know it's a huge amount of money, but we would come back with a vengeance and make all that money back, you know. And we will come back. We will come back. I mean, that's what's keeping me going. I mean, when you think of it, looking back over the centuries, the arts have survived plagues, wars, all sorts of things. Pandemic. Shakespeare wrote King Lear during a lockdown, which I believe sort of went on for 7 years. I mean,
Jesus, don't say that.
Not the same sort of lockdown as we've experienced. I mean, I think, you know, people were still going about their business, and, you know, they didn't have vaccines then, so herd immunity came about through letting it spread. But millions died. But the arts still survived. I mean, you know, they will survive. Unfortunately, there will be a lot of casualties, and you just think, you know, I mean, even people I work with, you know, my brilliant designer has I mean, he lost all his income overnight.
Is this Kevin?
Yeah. He's started a new business, doing all sorts of artistic things that, you know, making prints. I think he's been on Sky Arts doing portrait painting and so on. I've employed him for Invisible. But I mean, you know, he was at one time thinking, you know, what was he going to do? Would he have to leave the profession? You know, and I think a lot of people will leave the profession and their talent will be lost to us. And I think I just think it's a crime, frankly. I just think, you know, the powers that be ought to be ashamed of themselves. But, you know, don't get me started.
No, well, likewise. Yeah, don't get me started as well. It's incensed me beyond belief, and you know, broken my heart. But it breaks my heart more for people like you, because this is you know, this is your livelihood, you know, and people like you who you know, and potentially my son who is, you know, going into this as a profession. You know, what does the world look like for him when he graduates at the, you know, sort of end of next year? If he can graduate, you know, then there may be another sort of hiatus for students, you know, performing arts students. I don't know. But I do, you know, I just think, you know, he's gone into this. Sorry?
My daughter's opened a dance school in Brussels 2 years ago.
Yeah.
She had to close it. And I mean, she's opened it again now in a limited way. She's been doing dance over Zoom, and she's doing some socially distanced classes. But it was, I mean, it's, you know, to go and set up an artistic endeavour in a foreign country, to learn French. I mean, she already learned it at school, but, you know, she now speaks it fluently. She does all her teaching in French and English. She's learning Dutch. She's probably going to take out Belgian citizenship. It was just beginning to sort of take off and, you know, make a profit, because, you know, businesses take a while, and now it's sort of suffered all of this, and it's just such a shame, you know, because you know, it's just a lovely school that was offering dance classes to young people in Belgium. And you know, I think I spoke to her yesterday on FaceTime, and she was, you know, she was up and down. I mean, she's hoping that, you know, she'll get through this and it'll be fine. I mean, she's got a lovely partner and his family in Belgium who are very supportive, and obviously we are. But yeah, I mean, and like your son, you know, what the sort of message it's sending, you know, of course, you know, you can imagine what Jessica said about that Fatima advert. I won't repeat what she said.
No, probably not broadcastable. But she, you know, you must be so proud. I mean, she's a chip off the old block. I mean, she's like you. She's carved her way. She's paved her way, and, you know, I'm sure ultimately it will, you know, it will come back. But, you know, how do you see things for the short to medium term for the arts?
I mean, I think people have been very creative, you know, and as I knew artistic, creative people would be, you know, they've been doing all sorts of stuff on Zoom, they've been delivering things digitally, they've thought of delivering things in a socially distanced way. I mean, like the gallery has opened. You can go and see an exhibition, MK Calling, which is really worth going to see. And they've been very careful about all the COVID rules and so on. So I think it will come back, you know, it is coming back in a limited way. Obviously, theatre is going to take a while to get back on track. But I think there's an appetite there. I think people will want to come back. Obviously, there's outdoor theatre. I know the Arches have, you know, had a whole season.
Yeah,
and luckily we had decent weather. So I think it's going, I mean, I do think this sounds not very hopeful. I think the arts in many ways will take probably a decade to sort of come back to where it was, which sounds, you know, very pessimistic. But I think eventually we will come back and we will flourish. It's just going to take a long time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's good to hear your perspective, because obviously you've got your finger on the pulse, and, you know, you're on the sort of the thick of it, so to speak. So tell us, you know, what your plans are for the future. And I know the counselling has been incredibly helpful for you as a counsellor, but for people sort of receiving that as well. But obviously you've got the blog, and you've got all these other things. But what how can we in Milton Keynes, because obviously we were previously known as such an artistic hub, how can we make things easier for those who don't have the voice that you and I have?
I mean, I think, you do a fantastic job sort of retweeting stuff and, putting stuff out there. I try and do the same with other theatre companies. There's a theatre company that I've been introduced to up north in Liverpool called Perception. They got a theatre company. They've been doing stuff via video. They've been doing what they call branching out stories, where it's almost like forum theatre, and they've been tackling social issues like domestic violence, which has been a big worry during lockdown. And so I've been tweeting all their stuff and sort of putting it out there and supporting people and so on. I think, where possible, when we start coming back, if people can just, come to the theatre and support us, just, come to the theatre. Or if they can't, just really, really, really support us. Because I have had people sort of say, oh, well, the arts are not important, we've got other things on our minds at the moment. And I think, well, have you watched anything on Netflix?
Yeah, oh God, absolutely.
Read a book? Have you listened to a concert? It's got us through. The NHS have obviously done an amazing job, and obviously they're on the front line, but the arts have got an important part to play. And, I do get fed up with people who sort of say, well, yeah, they're nice to have. Well, it's not that they're nice to have. They're a must-have. They're important. Any civilised society has the arts. And when I say civilised, I mean, going back thousands of years. They were civilised as well, but they were doing cave paintings and so on. Well, that is, how people express themselves. So so I am sort of hopeful that we will get back, but as I say, it will take a while. And to go back to how we can help people, just keep banging the drum. Even at the expense of people saying, oh, we're fed up with it, but we just got to keep banging the drum about how important the arts are.
I think it's also important that obviously the large theatres have suffered, but they probably are going to be okay, because by virtue of the fact that they have an enormous budget and that they are they run a profit anyway. But it's the smaller independent theatres, and there's niche theatres, there's sort of fringe performers or that kind of creative industry. Those are the ones that have really suffered, as you say. Those are the ones who've gone. Some of them have gone to the wayside because they've not been able to sustain it because of money and lack of funding. And I think we need to be supporting the smaller voices and the smaller theatres and the little man who loves doing the Ram at the weekend or something.
Absolutely,
that's so important.
Very important.
That's kind of grassroots level. That's where it starts for some people, and that's all they might do. But for them, it's a lifeline. So I do think, I think, as you mentioned, the Archers Theatre. I mean, they've done an amazing job this year. Dave Pibworth is, he's an extraordinary visionary, and I've been to a couple of, I went to musicals in the park, and I went to a Low, and it was just wonderful. It really was, and he utilised this incredible outdoor space, weather permitting, and I sat there in some pretty inclement weather, but it was wonderful. It was just so lovely to see people being so resourceful, and I hope and pray that people in the arts, and as you say, we're a resourceful bunch, if nothing else, we keep doing that. We keep sort of plugging away and just thinking of how we can get our voices heard, because we cannot be quiet and we cannot be put in a corner and just say, this is not important, because it more than ever is so important. And I just can't wait to be sitting in an auditorium, watching one of your shows one day and just thinking.
Well, I'm planning something next. October. I've already booked it with the gallery. I'm planning another Taking the Stage, and I've got all sorts of people lined up, like well, I'm hoping April De Angelis, playwright, is going to do the keynote speech. I'm hoping Morgan Lloyd Malcolm, who did Amelia, is going to be available. I've got all sorts of people. We're going to bring the play Invisible Woman to fruition. We're going to have all sorts of interesting discussions, debates, panels, like we did for Taking the Stage #1, and we're also going to introduce more film into it as well. So it'll be taking the stage and screen. So I shall be putting in another Arts Council application probably in December-ish, ready to do that in October. And I'm also planning all sorts of other things when we can actually get back into possibly a Shakespeare festival, possibly some other plays. I'm quite keen to do the Vagina Monologues to raise money for domestic violence, victims of domestic violence. And, I'm sort of thinking there's all sorts of things that we can do, even if we have to still be socially distanced and so on. So I've got lots of plans, which again is sort of keeping me going and sort of keeping, a lot of my colleagues, I think it's helping them as well to know that actually there is something in the offing, because I've written to people and said, I know it's a long way off, but are you interested in doing this? And they've all come back and said, oh wow, yes, please, because I just think it's about hope, isn't it? It's about keeping hope going. Yeah. And I talk a lot in counselling about hope.
We all need hope. We really do. And as always, an absolute pleasure to talk to you. How can we find you on social media?
Well, you can go to playsthethingtheatrecompany.co.uk. We're on Facebook. That is our also our website. We've also just Plays the Thing for Instagram, and we're also on Twitter, Plays the Thing. And I've got this wonderful, I don't know if you met her at the Arches, Nikki Proberts.
Yes, she's been giving me some amazing advice.
Yeah, she's my PR person, so she puts up loads of Instagram posts, Twitter, and so, because it's it'd be a full-time job for me. So she does all of that now, and she's fantastic. So we're constantly doing updates, and I do a blog every other week, and I shall be launching each bit of the Invisible project every other week. The first one today. So just sort of follow and like us, and tell everybody to do the same.
Well, absolutely. Well, obviously we'll share the links at the end of the show as well. So Rosemary Hill, an extraordinary voice, a champion of the arts, both locally, nationally and internationally. The work that you've done for the arts over the last 40, 50 years just is an honour. Pardon?
I said that puts a date on me, doesn't it?
No, but your CV and everything you've done is amazing. So thank you, and continue to do what you're doing, because you are such a shining leading light in the industry, and we need more people like you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me on.
It's a pleasure. So thank you for appearing on the Nancy Stevens Show. I've been talking to Rosemary Hill, actor and director, and as I say, bastion of the arts in Milton Keynes and the surrounding areas. Rosemary Hill, thank you so much. And if you'd stay around, we'd like to do some sound bites afterwards. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.